Hi guys, I'm Dan at vintagevelo.org, and today, rim brakes or disc brakes? Which is better? What should we be choosing? Now, this is an argument and a discussion that's been going on for some time. Now we're seeing top-end group set manufacturers discontinuing rim brakes as an option. Thought maybe it was time to take a little look at what are the advantages, disadvantages of disc brakes. When you're in any modern sportive, almost every bike now is a disc brake bike, and they're not without their issues, but they certainly have a lot of pluses. So I figured it was time we take a little look. Now, I'm going to get out there on this epic Merckz team bike. This was Sean Yates' 711 team bike back in 1990, full Dura Ace throughout, and more importantly we have dual pivot Dura Ace rim brakes on here with relatively recent Dura Ace pads. Very important. No old rock hard pads for this test. Also, hey, in the vintage world we've all ridden plenty of really rough old gas pipe frames with Mafang racers not well set up. This isn't the kind of test we want for that. I want top end only, so Dura Ace dual pivots, only way to go. But up against it again, let's not mess around. There are plenty of really badly set up disc brake bikes out there. Any sportive you go to, you are going to see a lot of them. But we're not looking at that. The young pretender here, a very fresh, very modern Trek Madone, full-on race bike with full Shimano setup throughout, including pneumatic disc brakes. No cable disc brakes for any test like this, only the full-on race bike setup for this. Now, it's not a warm day. It has been it is very cold, and it's been raining quite a bit as well. So I figured, don't do this test on a lovely sunny day when everything's working great. Do it on a cold, horrible early winter's day when things aren't going so well. That will show up issues that we've got out there. But first off, I'm going to get out there. We've all met the Sean Yates Merckz before, but we're going to get out there, put it through its paces, and do a couple of fast downhill brake tests, see how that goes. Now, I'm not going to overlook the fact that it's been almost 35 years since Sean Yates stepped across this Merckz Corsa with the 711 team and rode it in anger. And despite those years, I know this bike brakes superbly. In fact, it's one of the main reasons, apart from being epically cool, that I chose it to ride that winter sportive we did back at the start of this year, because I knew the brakes were really, really good. Now, that's the thing, when it comes to rim brakes, it's not a level playing field. I've ridden loads of really bad rim brake bikes and several really good ones. This is definitely a really good one. But obviously, apart from the calipers, the pads, the rims, you've also got to factor in those fulcrum points, pivot points on your brake levers, and how everything works in conjunction with everything else. Now, I know on this they work really well, and interestingly, last year when we interviewed Sean Yates, and this bike was sat in the room with us and we were chatting about it, he did say that he found when dual pivot came out, he actually preferred on this bike to stick with a single pivot rear, because he found there was too much grab on that back wheel. The back wheel was too powerful. It was creating quite a lot of lockup under heavy braking. So he preferred a dual up front and a single at the back. Okay, so modulation. What is that really? Well, it's the amount of brake lever travel you get before your brakes kind of really get into the meat of doing their job. Some brakes have a lot of modulation, some have very little. These are about right on here. These Dura Ace are spot on. Certainly, if you want to experience a lot of modulation, maybe give some Campagnolo Deltas a go. You'll soon figure it out with those. If you kind of grab up a load of brake and then some more, then give it another squeeze and it will start slowing down on you. That's pretty much it. And on a lot of early disc brake bikes, there were reports of effectively over braking. The rotors were too big, and in fact I do know a guy who on his first wide out grabbed the front brake too hard and flipped himself over the front of the bike. Obviously I don't think he was quite paying enough attention, but I'm pretty sure that kind of thing could happen if you know, you weren't aware. But I'm pretty sure those kind of issues have gone away now. But that's not to say if you buy a second-hand bike, might be something to consider. But that is modulation, the amount of distance. Whoa, that guy's almost just crashed. What on earth was he doing? Okay, well, I mean, if he's still got a wheel after what I've just seen, I'll be amazed. Anyway, right, time to get back on, because we've got to get down this fast hill and hit some brakes. Okay, excuse the wind noise, but we're going pretty fast. We're about 50 kilometers an hour. I'm going to hit the brake hard now. Pretty good. Little bit of locking up there, just had to balance it. But if we look here, going to use that little log there as our marker point. Let's go get the Trek, see how that does. Alrighty, so we are now swapped out onto the Trek Madone or Madone, one of the two pronunciations. One of you out there will correct me on which one it is. Obviously not lost on me again that, you know, in the true tradition of this channel, I am doing an impression of Donkey Kong on Super Mario Kart, because this thing is way too small for me. And the seat post adjustment on these, there's about 20 mil. So, you know, it's either too short or really too short, not a lot in between. But at the moment it's feeling good, so we're just going to get out there before the light fails me. I better get to that braking point. Now I'd say the single biggest issue with disc brake bikes is probably one of setup and maintenance. Now, this Madone is set up spot on. Steve, buddy of mine who owns it, absolutely loves it, lavishes attention on it, and it is, you know, really well set up. Obviously the 28mm tyres on here, which actually sit, I've measured them at 31. It's all great, it's quite nice to ride. But maintenance wise, now when you're at a Sportive, and now the vast majority of bikes there will be carbon, usually with disc brakes, and I would say maybe 10% of those you can hear the rotors are rubbing, you know, and catching all pretty much all the time, and maybe 25% will be squealing when they hit the brakes. And obviously all bets are off if it's wet and horrible. They'll pretty much all be screaming away, but that is in the nature of the disc brake. Now they can also, you know, if it's dry and they're squealing, you can get issues with grabbing and all sorts. Their modulation goes out of the window, and the reason why that happens, it's almost always some kind of oil-based contamination of the brake pad or the rotor or a bent rotor. And I wonder, like on a bike like this, you know, it's pretty new, it's loved, it's set up really, really well. 20 years time, will it be set up and loved so much? Yeah, I'm going to doubt that. How many people then will have the wrong fluids, the wrong mineral fluid in their hydraulic system, or just, you know, carrying on with those old pads, all that kind of stuff that we do, or a rusty rotor? I'm sure it's going to happen. Now, if you stay on top of everything, everything pretty much stays okay. But interestingly, the guy that owns this has a couple of other disc brake bikes, and another one he's got on a Cervelo. It's the same Shimano setup, but that goes through pad contamination at a rate of knots, whereas this Madone doesn't. And we're both at a loss as to why two similar setups, one would fail often and the other one wouldn't. But obviously I chose the good one because there's no point in testing a bad one. But it's certainly something to be considered. Is, I think, disc brakes like this are more maintenance heavy, and you've got to be a lot more aware, or else you're just going to squeal and make all those horrible noises and notchy, horrible, grabby braking that can go with contaminated pads. So something to be aware of. Okay, speed up on the Madone. The braking point we looked at earlier is just coming up. You're going to see how it goes. See it right here. Just to the side. Sit back. Go! Okay, right, we stopped, but hang on. Right over there, that was the stop point from earlier. So quite fascinating. Right, let's head back. No time to spare. Okay, so. I was planning a coffee stop debrief, but I'm losing the light in a big way, and I've still got 20 minutes to go to get back. And yeah, I didn't bring any lights because I am an idiot, as we know. So, you know, we're just going to have to do a riding conclusion. First off, Madone's a very nice bike to ride, sure. Could do with a lot more adjustability to make it fit. But in general, yeah, very, very good. Nice plush ride, much more comfortable than I was expecting. And the brakes themselves, they are very easy and nice to use. I've got to be honest, very smooth, no grippiness at all, no jaggedness, they're just nice. Interesting on the test that I was able to get the Merckz Corsa to stop by about 5 meters quicker or shorter on that downhill 50 kilometers an hour to zero stop. Must point out both bikes' tyres set at about 75 psi, so there's nothing in it there. But I think probably my familiarity with the Sean Yates Merckz meant that I was able to just ride that balance of locking up to heavy braking a bit more confidently with this. I'm sure if I really weighed in on the anchors on this, there wouldn't be much in it. And I think that's what it comes down to. There's always that argument. I mean, I hear it from vintage riders a lot. You know that, I don't need disc brakes because as long as I grab on them hard enough, I lock up both wheels, so I don't need any more. And there's a case and example point here. Both bikes, I would say, on that descent were probably stopping at exactly the same rate, but that was close on the limit. Where no doubt disc brakes do score is in the wet. Although they make a lot of noise, they do brake very, very well. And if you are also planning on doing some serious mountain cold descending, where you might be descending for 14, 17 kilometers and you're grabbing a lot of brake, they're going to heat up. They're not going to blow the tyre off your rim in the same way a rim brake may do, and it certainly does happen. Now, $1 million question. If I was buying a brand new bike, and don't get me wrong, I'm not the kind of guy that goes out and buys a brand new bike. It's not called Brand New Bike Velo, this channel, is it? It is Vintage Velo after all. But let's say I was actually getting out the checkbook and buying a brand new bike. Would I spring for disc brakes or rim? It's a really hard choice. I probably go disc, but then I do like rims, and the latest Dura Ace, really good. I don't know. I'm 50. I'm a bit torn. I couldn't say. Yeah, probably disc because I think tyres and wheels will be the only thing that will be available for disc brakes. So probably disc, but maybe, who knows? Anyway, you decide. Pop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Anyway, I've got to get my head down and get back because it's getting dark very, very quickly, and it's really cold. My feet are numb. So do a like and subscribe to see me torture myself out on a very cold day some more this winter. Thanks a lot.